Evening's True Diversity Film Series, which is the flagship program of our Standing in Solidarity program. My name is Sarah Rosen, and I serve as the Managing Director of Women at NJPAC. Women at NJPAC is pleased to be co-producing tonight's event in celebration of Women's History Month. We need our own month, we need our own year. Women at NJPAC is a powerful, dynamic community of women who have raised more than $56 million over the last 25 years to support the Arts Center's work in arts education and community engagement and programs just like these. So tonight we are happy to welcome you to a free screening of Going to Mars, Nikki Giovanni Project, and we are thrilled to have the filmmaker Michèle Stephenson joining us tonight for a conversation after the film with Donna Walker-Kuhn, our Senior Advisor of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at NJPAC and a one-of-a-kind powerhouse. We invite you to submit questions for Michèle during the index cards that I hope you got. We have them around. If you need them, please raise your hand, and if you need some, and our ushers will collect them at the end of the screening, so you'll be able to submit questions. So we always begin with a land acknowledgement. The language we are using was created with consultation and guidance from Chief Dwayne Perry of the Ramapo-Munsee Lenape tribe and Oleana Whispering Dove of the Eastern Tsalagi Algonquin descendant. We are grateful to them for their generosity, wisdom, and labor to craft these words. We, the Lenape, original benefactors of land, once ripened and cultivated with attentiveness to the Creator and her ascendancy, express everlasting gratitude to our Creator for the traditional ancestral jurisdictions of the Munsee, Sapez, Canarsie, Capsee, Warpoez, Sinawoy, and Wequesquick, jointly known today as the Ramapo and Nanakoti Lenni Lenape. Let this, our land acknowledgement, be the beginning of a return to unity. Let us be guardians of the water, the air, and the earth, the four-legged, the flyers, the swimmers, the crawlers, the mammal people, and the green. Let us now stand lifting our humanity, enrapturing with Earth's consciousness as guardians of harmony and kindness. Tonight's program represents the goals and priorities of several of NJPAC's most generous and steadfast supporters. So I want to make some important acknowledgments. ADP is NJPAC's official community engagement partner, helping us to produce upwards of 200 free community events every year, including this long-running social justice conversation series, Standing in Solidarity. ADP made its first gift to NJPAC in 1993, 4 years before we even opened, and has been supporting us ever since, so thank you to ADP. This event is also part of Dodge Poetry, a new collaboration between NJPAC and the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation that celebrates poetry as a catalyst to advance social change. The Dodge Foundation has held its renowned biennial Poetry Festival at NJPAC since 2010, but this year we have teamed up for a deeper partnership to produce poetry programs throughout the year. These events are designed to engage and activate residents and to highlight the intersection of poetry and social justice. What better way to do that than to spend an evening honoring one of America's greatest living poet activists. So thank you to the Dodge Foundation and to Isabel Gonzalez, Dodge's Poetry Creative Officer, who is joining us tonight. And finally, as we mentioned at the top, this evening's program is part of PSEG True Diversity Film Series. Since 2014, PSEG and the PSEG Foundation have partnered with NJPAC to pair screenings of socially engaged films with thoughtful talks featuring activists, artists, academics, journalists, and other experts engaged with the topic. In 2020, the series pivoted to a virtual format so that we could safely continue to provide our community with access to such meaningful dialogue, particularly around social justice topics involving people of color, LGBTQ community, and women during the pandemic. So this year we are thrilled to be reconvening in person. Tonight is the second of 4 in-person True Diversity Film Series events this spring, and we are so grateful to PSEG for their encouragement and support. So I am delighted that Sarah Pena, PSEG's Director of External Affairs and a Woman at NJPAC trustee and a Newark native, is here tonight to help me welcome you all. Sarah?
Thank you, Sarah, with an H. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's discussion on Going to Mars, the Nikki Giovanni Project. What an amazing feeling to be in front of everyone having this timely and important discussion. As she mentioned, I'm Sarah Pena, Director of External Affairs for the Northern Region Territory of PSEG. And on behalf of the PSEG Foundation, we are very proud funders of the PSEG True Diversity Film Series. PSEG, which has been headquartered in Newark for 120 years, is thrilled to be a longtime supporter of NJPAC. We've been part of the community that has backed this anchor cultural institution ever since it first opened its doors almost 25 years ago, and the True Diversity Film Series represents the best of the relationship. Additionally, the PSEG Foundation has partnered with NJPAC and is a proud supporter of the Standing in Solidarity program, which includes the True Diversity Film Series. This series reflects PSEG's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially here in Newark, where we are more than just another utility company. We're proud of our commitment as citizens of Newark and as citizens of New Jersey. A tremendous part of that commitment is our support to organizations such as NJPAC and what the support means for diversity, for education, and for the arts. During this time of so many renewed conversations around race and justice, PSEG has committed millions of dollars and launched multiple initiatives aimed at ensuring that everyone, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, or religion, is treated equally and equitably in our company, most importantly, in our community. In fact, in 2023, PSEG hosted its second annual event commemorating Juneteenth. This event, which was led by PSEG Employee Resource Group, brought together leaders from across the enterprise to engage in meaningful discussions on raising awareness of Juneteenth and the relevance it has today. Later on this year, NJPAC will be hosting a commemoration of Juneteenth and its 4th in-person True Diversity Films discussion. There is more to be accomplished. However, I think we are moving in a positive, upward direction, and I am proud of the various ways PSEG is leading purposeful discussion to create awareness and inspire advocacy for change. When one of us is impacted in the community, we all feel the impact. That is why it's essential that we all join to act and build a framework of equity, compassion, and respect throughout the many diverse communities we represent that will truly benefit us all. On behalf of PSEG, we believe that our longstanding support for diversity, education, and the arts help us contribute to that ideal as well. Now it is my honor to welcome all of you to this important and timely event. Thank you for being here this evening, and please enjoy the discussion.
It is now my pleasure to welcome poet Dr. Naomi Extra. Dr. Extra teaches at Rutgers University, Newark, where she offers courses in jazz and poetry, women's studies, Black feminism, and Black sexual politics. She is the founder of the Black Women in Jazz Oral History, a project that seeks to contribute to the development of a new wave of jazz poetry and scholarship that centers on Black women.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's such an honor to be here today with you all. Nikki Giovanni has meant so much to me in my work. So I'm just going to read one poem that I wrote that in some way in conversation with her. And so I'll just introduce the poem very briefly by saying that sometimes I can't sleep. And when that happens, I do the worst thing you can possibly do, which is I go on the internet and Google all my life's questions. So this is a poem tied to that. Insomnia. If twice you dream your eyeballs are falling out, should you go hiking? If no one rings your phone or texts or emails for 24 hours, are you in love? If you sleep with books, does that mean you can never be erased? If you like Lil' Kim more than Minaj, has your vagina gone gray? If you are a black woman and you have the flu, should you watch Daughters of the Dust on mute? If you only remember to floss on Thursdays, do you need therapy? If you say prayers for roadkill and dead ants, are you a Pisces? If you refuse to see white people for 72 hours, does that mean you are fighting history? If you only know how to LOL with a keypad, do you need a thermometer? If you find a piece of cake in your bra before bed, does that mean someone is cheating on you? If you lick salt too many times, will you become a mathematician? If TED Talks help you sleep at night, are you lonely? If you stare at the toilet after each poop, are you a chef? If you have a chemical pregnancy, does that mean your lover is a ghost? If you are a chronic Lyft rider, are you trying to improve your dating pool? If you write a poem while sleeping, are you a witch? If you mistake a raisin for a date, have you given up on dreaming? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Extra. I'm glad to introduce Amina Bey, who many of you may know. Amina is the Executive Director of Newark's Emergency Services for Families, where she provides emergency services such as food, clothing, immediate shelter placement, rental assistance, utilities assistance, and other support services for individuals and families in crisis throughout Essex County. She is a member of Women at NJPAC and was born, raised, and educated in Newark, where she still resides. And we have asked her to share some reflections on Nikki Giovanni.
Thank you for allowing me to be here, sharing my thoughts and words. The one and only reason that I know anything about Nikki Giovanni and that I know that she even exists is sitting here in the front row, my mother, Frederica Bey. My mother gets the credit for introducing me to Nikki Giovanni, literally and figuratively. My mom has always been an avid reader as well as a social activist. So of course she was drawn to the writings of Nikki Giovanni. That sister is bad, is the first thing I ever heard my mom say about Sister Nikki. Soror, Nikki. As a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Nikki Giovanni's life and work has been an example of sisterhood, scholarship, service, and social action. She is a proud woman of African heritage who is also a student of history. Her poem, Ego Trippin', puts that all on full display. Her pride in her race, ethnicity, and womanhood is the interwoven theme of that famous piece. She is unapologetic about anything and everything that she is. I remember when she came to Newark when I was young. Nikki Giovanni was a close friend and comrade to New Jersey's forever poet laureate and Newark freedom fighter, Amiri Baraka. She supported the Black Power movement and the revolution that was taking place here in Newark. Both writers, poets, and activists, these two geniuses shared the stage at several Newark events in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I asked her to sign my copy of her book, Cotton Candy on a Rainy Day. I remember being surprised at how soft-spoken Nikki Giovanni was then and still is today. But her writing ignites a fire within your spirit. She doesn't need to scream or shout. Her power is in her prose. She speaks truth to power with every line, with every word. She is the reason that I write today. What I love most about Nikki Giovanni is that she is not afraid to say no. She will not allow anyone to put her in a box or mandate that she support this or that. She is her own woman and she has her own mind. You need not agree, just respect. Nikki Giovanni has a way of blending and melding the hard and the soft, the ugly and the beautiful, the pain and the love. She gave women in general, Black women in particular, a voice. She made sure that we were both seen and heard in a way that we had not been in previous years. Her writing gives us faith and courage and stands in the gap for those unable to express themselves in a way that allows us to be fully understood. She makes it plain and keeps it real, and she helps us do the same. A perfect example of this is in her piece, Lemonade Grows from Soil Too, where she writes, "We try to practice love. We use the chicken feet to make a stew. We take the scraps of cloth to make the quilt. We find the song in the darkest days. To say, put on your red dress, baby, because we're going out tonight. Understanding we may be lynched on the way home. But knowing between that cotton field and that house party, something wonderful has been shared." Thank you.
Welcome to NJPAC and this evening's True Diversity Film Series, which is the flagship program of our Standing in Solidarity program. My name is Sarah Rosen, and I serve as the Managing Director of Women at NJPAC. Women at NJPAC is pleased to be co-producing tonight's event in celebration of Women's History Month. We need our own month, we need our own year. Women at NJPAC is a powerful, dynamic community of women who have raised more than $56 million over the last 25 years to support the Arts Center's work in arts education and community engagement and programs just like these. So tonight we are happy to welcome you to a free screening of Going to Mars, the Nikki Giovanni Project, and we are thrilled to have the filmmaker Michèle Stephenson joining us tonight for a conversation after the film with Donna Walker-Kuhn, our Senior Advisor of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at NJPAC, and a one-of-a-kind powerhouse on our own. We invite you to submit questions for Michèle during the index cards that I hope you got. We have them around. If you need them, please raise your hand, and if you need some, and our ushers will collect them at the end of the screening, so you'll be able to submit questions. So we always begin with a land acknowledgement. The language we are using was created with consultation and guidance from Chief Dwayne Perry of the Ramapo-Munsee Lenape tribe, and Oleana Whispering Dove of the Eastern Tsalagi Algonquin descendant. We are grateful to them for their generosity, wisdom, and labor to craft these words. We, the Lenape, original benefactors of land, once ripened and cultivated with attentiveness to the Creator and her ascendancy, express everlasting gratitude to our Creator for the traditional ancestral jurisdictions of the Munsee, the Sapez, Canarsie, Capsee, Warpoez, Sinahoy, and Wequesquick, jointly known today as the Ramapo and Nanakoti Lenni Lenape. Let this, our land acknowledgement, be the beginning of a return to unity. Let us be guardians of the water, the air, and the earth, the four-legged, the flyers, the swimmers, the crawlers, the mammal people, and the green. Let us now stand lifting our humanity, enrapturing with Earth's consciousness as guardians of harmony and kindness. Tonight's program represents the goals and priorities of several of NJPAC's most generous and steadfast supporters. Poet, Dr. Naomi Extra. Dr. Extra teaches at Rutgers University, Newark, where she offers courses in jazz and poetry, women's studies, Black feminism, and Black sexual politics. She is the founder of the Black Women in Jazz Oral History, a project that seeks to contribute to the development of a new wave of jazz poetry and scholarship that centers on Black women.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's such an honor to be here today with you all. Nikki Giovanni has meant so much to me in my work. So I'm just going to read one poem that I wrote that in some way in conversation with her. And so I'll just introduce the poem very briefly by saying that sometimes I can't sleep. And when that happens, I do the worst thing you can possibly do, which is I go on the internet and Google all my life's questions. So this is a poem tied to that. Insomnia. If twice you dream your eyeballs are falling out, should you go hiking? If no one rings your phone or texts or emails for 24 hours, are you in love? If you sleep with books, does that mean you can never be erased? If you like Lil' Kim more than Minaj, has your vagina gone gray? If you are a black woman and you have the flu, should you watch Daughters of the Dust on mute? If you only remember to floss on Thursdays, do you need therapy? If you say prayers for roadkill and dead ants, are you a Pisces? If you refuse to see white people for 72 hours, does that mean you are fighting history? If you only know how to LOL with a keypad, do you need a thermometer? If you find a piece of cake in your bra before bed, does that mean someone is cheating on you? If you lick salt too many times, will you become a mathematician? If TED Talks help you sleep at night, are you lonely? If you stare at the toilet after each poop, are you a chef? If you have a chemical pregnancy, does that mean your lover is a ghost? If you are a chronic Lyft rider, are you trying to improve your dating pool? If you write a poem while sleeping, are you a witch? If you mistake a raisin for a date, have you given up on dreaming? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Extra. I'm glad to introduce Amina Bey, who many of you may know. Amina is the Executive Director of Newark's Emergency Services for Families, where she provides emergency services such as food, clothing, immediate shelter placement, rental assistance, utilities assistance, and other support services for individuals and families in crisis throughout Essex County. She is a member of Women in NJPAC and was born, raised, and educated in Newark, where she still resides, and we have asked her to share some reflections on Nikki Giovanni.
Thank you for allowing me to be here, share my thoughts and words. The one and only reason that I know anything about Nikki Giovanni and that I know that she even exists is sitting here in the front row, my mother, Frederica Bey. My mother gets the credit for introducing me to Nikki Giovanni, literally and figuratively. My mom has always been an avid reader as well as a social activist. So of course she was drawn to the writings of Nikki Giovanni. That sister is bad, is the first thing I ever heard my mom say about Sister Nikki. Soror, Nikki. As a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Nikki Giovanni's life and work has been an example of sisterhood, scholarship, service, and social action. She is a proud woman of African heritage who is also a student of history. Her poem, Ego Trippin', puts that all on full display. Her pride in her race, ethnicity, and womanhood is the interwoven theme of that famous piece. She is unapologetic about anything and everything that she is. I remember when she came to Newark when I was young. Nikki Giovanni was a close friend and comrade to New Jersey's forever poet laureate and Newark freedom fighter, Amiri Baraka. She supported the Black Power movement and the revolution that was taking place here in Newark. Both writers, poets, and activists, These two geniuses shared the stage at several Newark events in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I asked her to sign my copy of her book, Cotton Candy on a Rainy Day. I remember being surprised at how soft-spoken Nikki Giovanni was then and still is today.
Thank you all so much for coming and being a part of this amazing, amazing experience. Standing in Solidarity, is a program that we're really proud of, and this is a very special evening, and we really want to thank the women at NJPAC for making this possible. So now we have the pleasure, we've just finished watching the film, and now we're going to have a wonderful discussion with our incredible filmmaker, Michèle Stephenson.
Thank you for having me.
To talk a bit about this film, to learn some more about the insights of the film, drew you to the film. And as we know in Newark, we love the arts. We celebrate the arts, especially poetry. So this film is so appropriate for us. So let me introduce Michèle to you, and then we're going to have some questions. So Michèle, you're a filmmaker for Going to Mars. You're an artist and author. And you pull from your Haitian and Panamanian roots to think radically about storytelling and disrupt the imaginary in nonfiction spaces. You tell emotionally driven personal stories of resistance and identity that center on the lived experiences of communities of color in the Americas and the Black diaspora. Michèle's stories intentionally reimagine and provoke thought about how we engage with and dismantle the internalized impact of systemic oppression. And your feature documentary, Going to Mars, won the 2023 Grand Jury Prize at Sundance and been nominated for 3 Emmys and won the Special Jury Prize also at the Sundance Film Festival. Michèle has received numerous awards, and we're just delighted that you have the time to come and spend a few minutes with us to talk about.
One more thing, Going to Mars was also shortlisted for the Oscars.
Shortlisted for the Oscars. You all get that? I have to add that to the list. So let's just jump right in. What drew you to this film, to this project?
Yeah. Well, first, I am one of 2 directors of the film. I collaborate very closely with my life partner, and we were just coming out of our 13-year longitudinal observational film called American Promise, which really followed our family and our son and his trajectory through a private independent school in New York City. And we wanted to do something different. And actually, and we were interested in exploring what a profile of an artist could be that was not traditional. And we were really actually drawn to musicians. We were thinking about working with and telling stories of a couple of musicians we had in our head. And then we realized that financially speaking would be really difficult because licensing music for anyone who's in film or not in film, it is very expensive. And so we wanted something that would be more manageable or that we wouldn't have that high a hurdle. And we were listening to NPR, WNYC, and heard Nikki on the radio in an interview. And it kind of like sparked a bunch of stuff for us. We had a conversation and looked at each other. Oh, she would be great. And in some ways, we would be doing a musical film, because poetry has got its own rhythm and we could be exploring that. And she's been an inspiration for both of us. And also, she didn't say no. It was it was an easy initial in. Then the harder stuff happened a little later, but she was relatively easy to convince.
That's really great to hear. So, in creating a documentary about someone as accomplished and iconic as Nikki Giovanni, how do you start? How did you begin?
Yeah, that's a big thing. for us, of course, we started doing, research from the very beginning of her work. But in terms of our skill set, we knew how to do observational work, right? And so for us, it was important to get in there and film her today, and use that as a part of the spine of what the story would be. And in terms of what we covered of her everyday life, she was very accessible, you know. I mean, I think if we asked her to stand on her head, she might do it if she was able to, because we put her in a lot of different situations. You saw her in the bed, getting up. We had her in this field. You don't realize it, but in that field where her home used to be in Cincinnati, there were a lot of bugs and it was very hot, but she was a real trooper, and we had her in the black box. So that was the sort of beginning of us getting familiar with her. And then we had her read poetry every time we went to her. We had a list of poems that we were thinking, of different epochs, eras in her life, and one day we had her read Quilting the Black-Eyed Pea, We're Going to Mars, and we had started to understand more about her fascination with space that's been around since she was a child. If you see throughout all of her work, there are references to space and stars. And so the Going to Mars, and then when she read it, in her home, we realized, oh, this poem encompasses so much, not just about who she is, but about Black life, about space and Middle Passage. There were so many metaphors that really could be the container in which we could take this journey with her. And so that's when we use that poem and its stanzas as the recurring rhythm of the film that sort of put the glue together. And the film is edited like a poem. We edited in stanzas, these visual stanzas that have these sort of different themes. And they all include, each sort of section includes a conversation with Baldwin, centered around a particular poem and era, a connection to her current day life. So that's sort of conceptually what we started to do. And we knew we could include, there's so many poems, right? But we knew that there were certain iconic poems that we wanted to have. The MLK poem, Nikki Rosa, Ego Tripping, we knew they needed to be there. And we actually also wanted the Can You Kill poem. She refused to read it. So there are a few poems that she actually didn't, she was also reluctant to read the MLK poem too, for different reasons. And so when that happened, what we still knew that these were really important periods, both not just for her, but for us, for our history, for the collective consciousness. And so that's when we started to think about bringing in an actor to sort of play the young Nikki's voice. And Taraji P. Henson came on board with the help of Tommy Oliver, our producer. And so we had her read those two poems, but she also came in. We didn't want it to just be those two poems that just Nikki wasn't comfortable reading. We included her with other poetry so we could interweave her voice sort of more seamlessly. So it was also part of that rhythm too. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Of course it did, of course. Okay, so you just described this process of how you chose the works to be as inclusive as possible of Nikki's work. But what did you leave on the cutting room floor? What do you wish that you could have put into this film?
We left a lot of things. There's a saying that say that filmmakers never finish a film, they abandon them, because there are always changes. Like even when I'm watching now, there are things, I'm thinking about the things that I left out. I think for me, the biggest segment, the most significant segment for me that we left out, that we cut and really tried to include, is her reading of her poem that was an honor to Virginia Tech after the Virginia Tech massacre. I don't know if people are aware of the Virginia Tech massacre. I'm trying to remember what year it was, but it was in the early to mid 2000s. The engineering student who killed, I think, over 30 students, 35 students. It was one of the beginnings of those waves of massacres in the schools, was her student. And she forced him out of her class because she had seen in his writing, elements that she said she could not tolerate. And she almost lost her job as a result because she told the administration, either he goes or I go, because they didn't want to take him out of the class. And some of the students who were murdered were former students of hers. So, and there was a huge memorial where she read this beautifully powerful poem. The president was there, a bunch of people, it was huge. And her poem, and this is the power of art, which we were talking earlier about the healing aspect of art her poem just brought everyone to their feet and they started to chant, "Go Hokies," just out of the end of her poem because it was so powerful what she said. Anyway, that was a very hard one that we had to kind of put to the side because it sort of felt, it just was just a little bit off of the going to Mars and metaphor for us. And we did a number of screenings, of rough cut screenings and test screenings, and it always sort of stood out as, I don't know if it should be in there. And so, but it's a full scene, so I hope one day we'll be able to share it as its own, its own thing. But yeah, that's just one example.
Well, after spending so much time with Nikki, it was about 7 years.
Yes.
So what really surprised you about her? What just, like, wow, I didn't know that. And you'd already done tremendous research.
I hadn't realized coming in just how funny she was.
She's hilarious.
Yeah, I know.
Hilarious.
And I think that, that was golden for us.
Mm-hmm.
As a filmmaker, you want your audience to go through all different emotions. So if you can have humor and crying and anger all at the same time in your film, it's really something that can resonate for people. And so I think the level of her comedic talent and timing was really something that was a surprise and I think took the film to a whole other level.
Wow. We had a question from one of the individuals who registered for this event I wanted to ask you. So what is the one thing you would like viewers to take away from this film?
Yeah, I think as an artist and storyteller, I can only really speak to what I take away from the film. I think it's important to not dictate what others. I mean, a piece of art, you watch it, you see it, you look at it, you listen to it, and you bring, your experiences to it. And the complexity and the beauty of a piece of work is the fact that you can draw so many things that I might not even expect, right? And that's why you want to leave it there for people to enjoy, to experience, and interpret. For me, what I take out of my experience with Nikki and with making the film is and with this perspective of an artist, is the steadfastness of staying true to my vision and being unapologetic about it, and knowing that if I love it, I know there are other people like me who will too. And just being, and she speaks to that when she speaks to her students, right? That she writes her poetry, or you write it to share something that's in your heart. And if people love it and understand it, that's fantastic. But you don't write it to tell people how to think or what to say, So there's a vision that is complex, that, that's there to share, and I'm hoping people get out of it, some form of healing,
So, in Newark, we're constantly fostering artists, young artists, whether it's filmmakers, writers, poets, dancers. For the filmmakers that we have, what advice would you give them? How should they approach their career and what you've learned?
Well, I think So what I've learned, and certainly what I've learned through doing this project with Nikki, is the notion that this is a marathon and it's not a sprint. Right? That being sort of steadfast in your vision is not something that's going to happen overnight, but that you need to sort of keep and persevere, but also keep with community. I mean, the community is what has fed me, my community of other filmmakers, and other sort of affinities have fed me in what I do. But for young filmmakers, I mean, I guess it's two things that for me were really important: is finding that community of peers where you have the support, and understanding that to really realize your vision, your independence, it's a long road. It's not a short road. And to give yourself some grace too, in that process.
Why the video in reverse? There
Oh.
were certain aspects of it.
Yes.
And that was a question we had from the
Yeah.
audience.
For us, it was sort of the notion of time travel and collapsing of time. They were very specific in where they were. The reverse was, for the most part, usually either going from the past to the present or from the present to the past. There was Nikki walking back, but there were also the women picketing in the archival that were walking past, and some of the archival footage is usually at the beginning of a segment or at the very end of a segment, where we're sort of playing with time, reversing time for people, or fast forwarding time in that sense. So yes, so it was a time travel device that we used.
Another interesting question: what was your journey to get this funded? What kind of support did you need and that you were able to acquire?
The 7 years that we spent working on this were not intentional. Well, a couple of things. Actually, when we were touring with Nikki, she would often introduce us as, these are the filmmaking team doing a film about me. They're waiting for me to die so they can finish the film. Because she thought somehow we were there for so long that, well, the longer story is, with that, and this is a little anecdote, is Nikki has been saving her personal archival material at Boston University at an institute. She sends boxes every month since she was 28 years old. And nobody has access to that until she dies. And so I think that was part of what she was thinking, that, because I asked her multiple times, can we have access to it? And it was always a categoric no. But it was also the fact that we kept filming over 7 years. And part of that is, raising the money. Again, when you have a particular vision, is what I'm talking about, this idea of it being a marathon, not a race, and being sort of confident in your vision also requires you defending that vision to people who sometimes don't know. People didn't know Nikki, right? And the wrong question for them was, I don't know Nikki, so therefore why is she relevant, right? Is what we were getting from certain white institutions or white potential investors and funders, as opposed to asking, I don't know her, what can I learn from her? There's so many other films where you don't know the main participant. I've been watching films of documentaries especially, how often do I not know them? What is it about this particular story that potentially makes you uncomfortable? You're finding an excuse not to fund it. And so that's why it took that long. But we use that again as an opportunity for us to really explore the creativity. We experimented. Whenever we had a little bit of money, we would experiment with the visual language. And that helped us find the visual language that you see now, really, which is honoring a Black Atlantic aesthetic that is polyrhythmic, that is nonlinear. If we had gotten all the funding, the first 2 years, I'm not sure we would have been able to sit creatively to make it happen. And so we turned what was an obstacle into an advantage. And the great thing too about it is, we had a last sort of big chunk of money we needed, And we found a Black investor through a program who immediately got the film and became one of our best advocates, who found Taraji P. Henson for us. And so it was all sort of this synergistic thing. I mean, it took 7 years. It was on the 7th year we found Tommy Oliver and Confluential Films, and we couldn't have asked for a better partner. And so that's why I'm talking about, these things are marathons, and there's a meaning behind it, and take advantage of that time to explore the creativity. Because for me, also, sort of a Black radical sort of practice is not just about the content, it's also about questioning the form. That is a political statement too. When you just, don't take, trauma porn or, a certain liberal perspective on storytelling, you challenge it and push it, and hopefully maybe create something new that people can enjoy on so many levels.
Michèle, what's next?
Oh.
What's your next project?
We have a number of different projects, two of which I'm really excited about. We're sort of taking this sort of approach and applying it right now to a competition film where we're following the swimmer Simone Manuel, who was the first Black female swimmer to win an Olympic gold medal in an individual race in 2016. And she has a journey that's very sort of up and down, and is now coming back for Paris, the Olympics this summer. But we're using that journey to talk about Black aquatic skills and the history of the relationship of Black people to water, that there's a skill set there that we have been deprived of knowing, that we're going to sort of explore. So I'm excited about that. Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yes.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Michèle, I think we'll have to close. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Beloved film. And thank you, audience, for coming. I also want to give a shout out to any of the Deltas that are still here.
Oh, yes.
Because we know you all support. And also to thank our students from Rutgers University. They're here as well. So thank you again. Have a great night.